So the cat is out of the bag. It's all over the internet, can't be helped. And we got our very first look here, unofficially, not from Hasbro, of Transformers Studio Series 86 Voyager Class Junkyard. A quite extensive retool, quite impressive actually, extensive retool of Studio Series 86 Voyager Class Wreck-Gar. This is yet again our second Junkion member, and a little bit of an interesting trademark history lesson to be held right here today. Also, by getting the Junkyard trademark put onto this Cybertronian character for the first time, despite the fact that this isn't his first figure. So let's go into that before we get into this impressive display of retooling on a brand new toy, quite the partial. So originally back in the development of late 84, 1985 for the 86 movie, Fleur O'Deary made a whole bunch of character models for the background characters of the Planet of Junk, all these different Junkion members, and one of these character models, nicknamed Junkyard, was one of them, the one with the horns, the one with the visors, and the spiky arms. That was that. We knew his name was Junkyard, never was going to ever get a toy. That was that. And we knew the name was called Junkyard because of Fleur O'Deary's old little images and stuff like that, his little sketchbooks and everything that we got online. Fast forward many years later to 2011. We get our very first Junkyard figure from the Transformers Generations line, a retool, pretty much a brand new head sculpt, but a retool repaint of Generations Deluxe Wreck-Gar. Now, they didn't call him Junkyard, though. They called him Junk Heap. And the belief was, it's a fusion of Junkyard and Scrap Heap, two Junkion members having their name fused together, and that was that. When they did an interview at BotCon in 2012 at the Hasbro Q&A panel, one of the Hasbro members mentioned that the main reason why they called him Junk Heap instead of Junkyard was at that time Hasbro wanted to kind of have this distancing of trademarks with their other brands. AKA, they didn't want to have characters that were called one name in Transformers and also share that same name and trademark with, let's say, G.I. Joe or any other brands, My Little Pony. They've done it many times before, but at that moment in that time, they didn't want to do that. Again, it was 2012. The movies were still really hot properties for them. They didn't want to have that kind of brand confusion. And in the case of this brand confusion, because Junkyard, for people that aren't aware, there's a character in G.I. Joe called Mutt. He's kind of the canine expert along with Law and Order. And Mutt had a dog named Junkyard, and Mutt always had Junkyard included with him in his toys since 1983. Since 1984. And every single version of Mutt came with a Junkyard toy and was trademarked Junkyard. So it was always kept. Now, this would go on for every 3 to 5 years with that Mutt/Junkyard character until 2012. Hindsight is 2020 because in 2012, they stopped making Mutt and Junkyard toys. They lost the Junkyard trademark, and that was that. They kept doing Junk Heap stuff, keeping that Junk Heap trademark until that was going to expire. But I think that what really made them want to go back to using the original name is, number one, they lost Junk Heap, they lost Junkyard, and now we have a chance to kind of get it back and then maybe do a Mutt toy with the G.I. Joe line in the future. And Hasbro's in a very different frame of mind where now they don't mind sharing trademarks across different brands and stuff, even having a Nerf gun, called a Barricade or something. They don't care. They don't care about that. It's better to keep the trademark than to lose it and just have it across their other brands than to lose it completely to, let's say, Mattel or anything else. And at the time, Mattel, especially in the mid-2000s to late 2000s, they also had their WWF line with Junkyard Dog. So I'm pretty sure they want to kind of put an end to that in a lot of ways. So here we have today Studio Series 86 Junkyard. That's the trademark. That's what they're going with, the original trademark name, the original name of the character, so that's fantastic. But let's talk about the toy itself, because there is a lot going on here, and I am very happy to see it, especially from something that's an army builder character, and especially considering how we already saw how they handled the sweep, which was which was not very impressive at all. So this is a fantastic extreme retool. A lot of stuff going on. We're going to do this top to bottom because there's just so much going on. I'm going to include an image of the original Studio Series 86 Wreck-Gar in the thumbnail, just so we could kind of see side by side in a lot of ways too, just how much is going on with that upper torso. Now, let's start with the head sculpt. Brand new head sculpt, again, based off of that Junkyard head sculpt, the horns, the visors, and all the little fine details there that made that original animation model. It looks like also the front end of the vehicle. We don't have a vehicle photo, but the front end of the vehicle, you could see some of its kibble spilling out in the backpack. So it also looks like the front end of the vehicle is going to be also very large and pronounced. Probably very true to the original animation model by Toei of Junkyard, which almost had kind of like a giant blast shield in the front of the vehicle, which I'm going to get into also as accessories too. They're probably going to add to that. As we get down more to the chest, wow, there's a lot going on there. So the original Wreck-Gar had his little, without a better use of terms, laser nipples on his chest, and was kind of very bland from that. This guy here has a lot of fine detail and paneling, a lot of veneering, and has those little almost like, I guess, handlebars hanging off of his chest too. There's a lot of differences and changes that makes him look very different from that of his original mold in that of Studio Series 86 Voyager Wreck-Gar. Very nice. We get to the shoulders. Again, brand new sculpt for the shoulders. Has the spiky shoulders in this case. What's cool about this is where it shows that it's kind of a fusion of the Fleero Deary design mixed with the Toei design, because Toei cleaned up Fleero Deary's design to use for the 86 movie. So we have kind of a fusion of the two, where the fine details of the Toei design and the Fleero Deary design kind of fuse into one here to make those shoulders. Looks very nice. Again, very different from the more bland kind of Wreck-Gar look. And when we get to the arms and the forearms, it's not super crazy retooling, but there is some veneering and paneling that is slightly different. There's some lines there with that pretty much pops with the paint more than anything. So it is very different there. Before we get to the rest, we might as well go into the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the accessories and weapons. While the wheels themselves that make the wheel accessories for the alt mode and for the vehicle, the robot mode, look almost exactly the same, even in terms of paint deco and stuff. And same thing, the pinwheel axe looks pretty much the same. Maybe it's a lighter gray. It's hard to tell with these photos. But he also has these two extra blast shields that are hanging off of the side of his arms, which I feel are going to play a big part in that of the alt mode. These blast shields, again, not present on that of the Wreck-Gar figure itself, and I think it's going to play a lot into how the alt mode is going to turn out, and we'll get into that when we speculate about the alt mode in a moment. Let's get back to going down the chest to the ab crunch. Ab crunch looks exactly the same, just repainted differently. Same thing when we get to the crotch region and his side panels. Looks pretty much the same. Then going into the lower legs and going down the legs. Everything else pretty much is the same, just good, clever use of paint to make it look just a little different. So otherwise, quite the impressive and extensive retool. Now, when we don't have an alt mode photo, but considering how Wreck-Gar's transformation works, it's pretty easy to figure out how this is going to go, and it's going to lead to a front end of a vehicle that is going to look very different than that of his original mold compatriot in Wreck-Gar. And having those blast shields on the side, having that front end that doesn't have the, I guess again, like I'm going to call them, the nipple lasers, and of course, just how the tooling is going to probably be of the front end of the vehicle, it's going to lead to a very popping and very different alt mode. And that's fantastic because this is going to be an army builder, and the way that people display their Junkions, especially with this one here, also keeping up the gimmick where one could ride on top of the other. It's not hard to knock them down. It's getting them to stay down that's the trick. That's going to be great for people that buy two of these and want to have them displayed in different ways. You're going to not just have the same figures all next to each other. They're going to have very different molding and coloring to make for some great photography. This looks amazing. This looks absolutely amazing. I am so surprised, again, considering how much of a letdown the sweep was. They went in a completely different direction here. And what's great is because both Wreck-Gar and Junkyard here have so much difference in terms of parts and pieces, if they ever do want to do, again, scrap heap, if they want to make a third Junkion member and really add to this, they could just mix and match between the two. They could take some pieces from Wreck-Gar, they could take some pieces from Junk Heap, mix and match together to make some different kinds of sculpting and look, put a brand new head sculpt on the top of it, and then you got Scrap Heap, maybe a new paint scheme. There's a lot going on here. I'm very impressed with it, very excited. This is exactly what I would want from the army builders and stuff like this. Let me know what you think. Hopefully we get some photos of the alt mode in the near future. It's probably going to happen considering that the hands that this figure has fallen into. But fantastic stuff. Let me know what you think, and hopefully we'll get some more information before we get the weekend live stream on Saturday.